Alright folks, and welcome to this week's That's Mental Mate. I'm joined this week by Thomas Campbell and Declan Moore. They started a men's drop-in centre in Claude's Cafe here in Derry. How are you lads?
Very well.
Very well, yeah. Right. Looking forward to it.
So we start the episode every week asking our guests how they are within themselves.
For me, at this moment in time, I'm actually really, really good within myself. Took a long time to get there, but at the minute I'm sort of the most content and the most settled that I've been in a long time.
That was Thomas. Declan is, I'm going to go the other way. Having just lost my dad there in November, not that I'm struggling too much, but it's just there's a change and a shift. And in terms of what Thomas has, the idea he's come up with here, and I've always found myself sort of gravitating towards this. I really, really liked all the stuff we've done on our charitable stuff with Claude's. This particularly, I've always liked it, even with my dad, sort of when I was in a nursing home and whatever. But since he's passed away, you get so much just from being around with people. Might not be necessarily talking about anything in particular, death or otherwise. It's just, and that's what I find in here that you have created, Thomas, which is people come in and they'll talk about football and they'll talk about now we've organised sort of football matches and whatever, and Thomas has organised fishing, which you may sort of touch on as well. So it could be talking about anything, but it's just that sort of camaraderie nearly of the unspoken stuff, that you don't necessarily wheel out what's wrong with you, it's just being around.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting you said that, because although this is my first collab with two people on the podcast, I've actually interviewed another podcast called the Man Hug Podcast, and they're based in Liverpool, and they've said something very similar to yourself. They try and get young men involved, just to come and not even have to speak about mental health. They can just play a football match, and then it progresses then to maybe what are you doing tonight? Do you want to go for a beer? Do you want to go to the cinema? Like and it builds friendships and it builds a rapport with people. So it just shows you that I guess, well, I'll probably dive right into it. The likes of a men's mental health drop-in centre probably sounds quite daunting to someone, but really, I'm sure you can say it isn't.
Definitely not, and I think, without it being called a men's mental health cafe, it definitely has that about it. I think as soon as you put the mental health cafe side of things on it, you've already stigmatised it, where we hadn't done that. We went just it's a men's cafe, come and have a chat. And some of the conversations that's happened here over the 6-7 months now that we've been running this have been seriously deep. That people have really poured their souls out of how they were feeling and the tough times they were going through, and the support that they got from the other guys in the group has just been amazing. And you can see the change in them before they even leave at the end of the evening.
It's crazy, you're right, and we talked about a sort of, if you like, some kind of format, and it is just, I would try and put a post up just for social media for ourselves to see if anybody's in town, and it's just Claude's drop-in chat or men's drop-in chat or whatever. It's no real, and so when I talked to Thomas and we had this idea, I thought, let's get these inspirational men, whether it be I have sort of friends in business or guys that Thomas would know, like Danny Quigley, or really great guys within their own sort of spheres and whatever, different radio personalities or different people, and we says, or I think you said, listen, I don't really want to structure as such on this in terms of let's make it informal, let's make it that nobody's, you don't feel as if somebody's going to give a talk and talk down to you that somebody's really good and you're not so good, that kind of way. And it's just exactly, it works perfectly well for like we do an event on Christmas Day, and it's like an organised chaosy type thing. It's not quite as chaotic as down here, but because there's no format, it's found its own level. There's nobody really leading it, and there's times that if I'm sort of coming in late or you're late, Thomas, or whatever it might be, there are several other people that have come along now that are just put a cap and sort of feather, and if anybody new, they'll sort of welcome them in and whatever. So it's just a no lose situation, just a lovely place to be for that couple of hours.
Like just as Declan said there about the other group members of the group stepping up and taking like the leader roles to welcome new members. We had a guy last week. He arrived about 5:45. I only finished up about 6 o'clock, and I wasn't here.
Nor was I.
Were you not here earlier? They had seen that he was new to the group, and they said to him, look, welcome, and they had a quick chat with him, and they said, look, we're finishing now at 6 o'clock, but there's 2 years going out for dinner. Would you want to come along? And they took him along with them out for dinner, and they'd only met about 15 minutes. And they took him out for dinner, and they bought him his dinner, and the fella came back and out again.
That's very good, because you can imagine that for that person coming in 15 minutes before, it must be a really daunting experience, both for what they want to talk about and just coming into a room of strangers. I know I would really struggle with that. So it's really nice that even though you weren't there, you were able to just reach out that hand. And
and that's the thing. I think it works because everybody will have something going on within their lives. I do a lot of cycling, and when we started this back in summertime, I remember like literally cycling as far as wherever, Port Rush somewhere, but really busting myself to get back here for 4 or 5 o'clock. I don't really miss it all, and that's what it means to me now. Is that yes, it'll run itself, and that's the beauty of this now. That I will have a member of staff and Zoe Peoples who will look after this. Thomas will be here, I'll be here, but in the off chance that we're maybe crossing over or not here, the place will still be open. The members, or not members, but the guys will still come along. The staff will still be here to staff it, and so it's great to have something that allows us, if we do have other commitments, which we all do in our lives, that it doesn't interfere with what has been started here.
And can I ask, if you don't mind me asking, right at the start, what made you want to create it? What conversations were had? How did you come about a cafe?
I'm going to throw in here that I think that well, first of all, I every single time, and I'm delighted, if nothing else, to be here tonight to say that Thomas Campbell is the man. So that's first and foremost. Thomas' idea, he's got his own story, but I think we might have met even. I heard of Thomas's name. We would do a few bits and pieces and try and get involved with community stuff from our cafe, and that's where we had come into it. I think we were on a similar radio show once upon a time. We might even have been on as guests, or you had either been on or were on, but we maybe got talking to each other through a completely sort of random thing. And I had heard, it might have been like I was talking about one thing on BBC, and maybe Thomas had talked about or was talking about something else, and we sort of connected that way. That's how I certainly remember connecting with Thomas anyway. And from then I thought the idea that Thomas had was fantastic, and I somehow we got in contact with each other to then what we said was we'd provide that idea. If Thomas had the idea, we would certainly give it the space and the time and the staff, and throw whatever resources we could at it to make it happen. But I mean, nothing exists without this man here.
For me, the men's cafe came about from my time. I'm a recovering alcoholic, so after I went through Northlands, you do 2 years aftercare. So the 2 years aftercare, we met once a week, every week, and it was just talk about your week, and it was a safe space, a safe environment that you came and you opened up and you shared, and then you get help and guidance from the other members that were there. And I thought, why is this not something set up from the town that men can come, share their troubles, and get the help and the guidance from other men that are going through the same scenarios. You might get men that are further down the line that are going to give them great advice on how to be able to deal with it, and that's where the whole idea came from. Original plan was, let's run 12 weeks, see how we get on, and from second weekend we were having 15-20 men coming, and I was just like, no, this is amazing. Like, and as Declan said there, it just sort of grew its own legs, it grew its own stance that it's here. A couple of other ones have popped up across the town as well, sort of off the back of it, which is amazing. But it was just an idea that I had, that why can't this be extended on the men's group, that we can have a safe space for men to come and talk about their feelings.
Can I just say that Thomas has also been bonus, because he's not actually said other stuff, and there's wee shoots which I love about this, in that I've seen I absolutely know people who have been involved and seen what we do, and that's why I'm kind of social media. I'm an old bloke, but I'm getting involved in social media, and how do you post this and how do you do this to try and make an awareness. But since Thomas has come up with this idea, there has been, and I'm sure Colin Shields wouldn't mind me saying this, from Silly Cycles, they had organised a men's kind of cycle chat, and I'm sure it's because of what they've seen here and thought, you know what, actually, so whatever you're good at, he's a cyclist, he has a business with repairing bikes and whatever, so people have done stuff which within their remit, but it has still involved that thing, and I think that's a massive compliment to Thomas. He also is busy tonight organising, and I'm going to get talking because I can't really fish, but he said there's a fishing trip I hear abreast as well. So there's more than just this, as well as working full time and being a daddy to whatever, I don't know, kids are involved there. But I mean, this man here needs another day in the week to do what he has to be doing. But all the stuff is that, you know, so he's involved in fishing. It's not just this for Thomas. It's you know, and it should be very proud of what this is. People have sort of picked up different things of this, replicated what we've done, and that's great because you know, whatever about sort of imitation being sort of the biggest form of flattery, but it's not about flattering anybody apart from the fact that more people are being reached, and if that is the case, whether they're cycling or walking or on a train or whatever it might be, but it's or fishing, you know, it's magic.
And can I ask about the first meeting? Because, like I said, I've said before, it could be quite daunting. Were you worried that no one was going to show up, or were you really surprised at the amount of people that actually came, and even if they didn't speak, they maybe just came in for the environment? Or
it's fun about work. We work with a couple of GP services through the MDT teams. We got them as they put it out across all the GP services that there was going to be a men's cafe here. We did have social workers and the cafe from each GP service throughout the first 12 weeks, who were given the additional support as well. So if there was stuff that the men didn't feel comfortable talking about, that they could come down to one of the wee booths that we have here, and they had that conversations with the GP services. And what that done as well was it allowed the GP service to get feedback and be able to send that back to their own GP. So with guys coming on with mental health issues, they were unable to get their social workers, and the social worker was able to lift their phone, send a text to the social worker that worked on that GP service, and the person was getting contacted the next day. And that was amazing. Like, they have that short, quick connection that we were able to provide. Just sort of worked. I don't know if it was, back to the original question, but I don't know if it was nervous.
I don't think I ever was nervous. It never was not going to work because of it was clearly it was an accident in terms of how I actually thought I thought, oh, do you know what, this is a great format to have these guys come in and do a wee piece of 30 minutes or interact and, you know, whatever, and sort of make them, I was kind of thinking make them accessible, whatever these local celebrities we would bring in, whoever they could be. But when we sort of decided, and Thomas kicked me I think once and said, listen, no, we're not doing it, we'll probably just make it informal and whatever. So it was very informal, and from that day to this, it literally has just worked. And it didn't take it took 20 minutes to figure out that the approach maybe I was thinking about was definitely the wrong approach, and that nobody needed to be sort of lectured or whatever, if that's what people thought.
We thought that we would do 12 weeks, have 12 guest speakers come on and they would talk. And I was going to kick it off by me telling my story of where I came through from addiction, my mental health side of things, and coming out the other side. And within about 20 minutes of the men starting to come on and just started forming their groups and started chatting and their conversations, and then I just said, Declan, I think it's best just to let it go like this. Taking that away from it then, and making somebody sit and listen to somebody else. I think it was taken away from what it was going to become.
Yeah, because we tried to be a couple of things. There was 1 week, and it's always nice to change things up. I missed a week actually that I was on holidays, and they had one of the guys, Adrian, organised a quiz, and I was raging. One of the staff put it online, and I said, "Oh, raging! I love quizzes." But I tried. I had got a guy at one time who was doing a bit of storytelling, a bit of playing music and yarning and whatever else. And like you just said, sometimes things don't work, and the guys were their feedback was, it is important at the same time, which you would never get, that sort of wee undercurrent of nobody ever says how actually important it is, and it might just be an innocuous conversation, but they didn't need somebody filling time for an hour and a half or an hour or whatever it would be, that they thought within themselves that informal chat was way more beneficial and important than, so it's interesting how it has worked. Now people will dictate. It's just, like I said, it seems to be a perfect format. I wouldn't want to be trying to get the recipe because it was probably accidental, but whatever it is, it's going good.
The reason I asked that was because obviously the stigma of men's mental health and men don't talk and man up and that kind of thing, so it is strange to think that strangers, like say 10, 12 men, strangers come in and they could start talking, but then I suppose, like you said, it could be about football or anything like that, and then the more close-knit that them relationships get, the more that they will open up. Is it kind of like go into their own booths in their own groups, or would you have like one speaker from that group?
Well, there's lots of wee offshoots. I think there's lots of. I mean, nobody really see in the early days, as Tom was saying about the sort of GP surgeries being involved in social workers and whatever. That kind of has taken a bit of a by ball now, and it's a very it's led by them. Us all themselves, us whoever. And so everybody gets together and has a chat. Now, if I was talking to Thomas, or Brendan was talking to whoever, then they may well sit somewhere on the QT and have a chat about whatever somebody thinks that they've had experience in, or they might pull them away for a wee second. Not at all organised. It's just totally impromptu on that one subject. But by and large, people just sit on and have their wee shoots talking, but in a group essentially. So there's zero sort of staged sort of element to this. It's all just very informal, and I could be sitting talking to you about something really, really important, but the rest of the guys could be talking about last night's match.
And I suppose that's a good thing about it as well. Do you think that that's important in Derry, especially because obviously Northern Ireland has the highest suicide rate in the UK, but for some reason Derry seems to be the main.
I'm amazed that, look, I wish the place was buzzing. It's a bit like sort of some other things that we do. You don't want to see that there's a need, but there is a need, right? And that's very clear. I'm amazed, if I'm being honest, by some of the people, and that's why I sort of likely gravitate here, because whatever the guys would say about themselves, but as somebody who maybe would say, look, I don't personally have any massive addiction issues or mental health issues, maybe as I told you before, maybe disputed by other quarters and some other people that might know me, but by and large, I look at these guys, and when you're saying there about coming into strangers, I'm amazed and blown away by the guys who how the courage they have to come in. And I'm sure it does certainly bother me, like you said it would bother you coming into. I would be in bits coming into 20 people who I think are gelled and know each other and whatever, but I just watch these guys, including tonight, with somebody coming in and somebody putting a bit of a wing around them, and it's just you nearly I don't know about you, but Thomas, but you kind of nearly feel like an outsider that these guys are in that group, and they're looking after each other. It's the most fantastic thing to see, and they probably don't see the amount of courage that they have, but it's very evident from me. And I would say that these other people on the outside, they sort of either maybe just don't have that sort of amount. I would certainly say I would put myself down for maybe not having that courage. I'd be very doubtful, but the link for me is coming in here and saying that it would give me some sort of confidence to maybe be a bit more proactive in doing something like that.
And the reason I asked that is because I write books as well, and one of my books actually is set in the city, and it's about I probably might be putting discouraging some people here saying this, but I've spoken about it before. So it was a petition on Facebook about extending the railings on the Foyle Bridge to stop people jumping it, obviously, and I thought that's all well and good, but that's not going to help someone feeling suicidal. There's X amount of other ways that they can take their own lives. So that kind of sparked in me, and a book came out of it, where a woman, Ava, talked that her mum committed suicide. She started her own charity. So it's mad that something like this is kind of similar. So it's like paralleling, and as you said, there's a few spin-offs as well. Do you think it's good in a way, but also it's because not enough's being done?
Well, for me, like, for my own side of my mental health, going back 4.5 years, my anxiety levels were that bad. If somebody walked from my window, I had in the bathroom for 3 days. I wouldn't come out of the house. If I had to walk to the shop, the hood was up, the head was down. Didn't want to speak to nobody. I would plan different routes so I wouldn't have a chance of walking into somebody would know. That's how bad that my anxiety and depression had got, that I couldn't face the world on the outside. Where now I'm talking at universities about mental health and addiction, and that's all from coming about speaking out of how bad that I was, and being able to understand the feelings that I was having at the time. From getting to understand the feelings, it's helped me be able to manage the feelings and actually deal with them a lot better. looking on the mental health side of things in the town and how it's affecting, as you say, changing the railings on the bridges and stuff like that there's always going to be a different way. For me, I was never suicidal, but I didn't want to live. And this is the thing that got me really bad about the GP services. Now I'm working with parts of the trust, and that's one of the things that I've raised to them is, if you go to the doctor with depression, one of the questions that you're asked is, are you suicidal? And my automatic answer was no. But on the other side of it, I didn't want to live. I would have been quite happy to go to sleep at night and never wake up again. How thin is that line between there and wanting to end it? How close was I coming to being suicidal? And that was never addressed. And I think that's a big downfall with GP services as well, that they need to be looking at. For me, that's big. But if we can provide a wee safe space like this for somebody to come on and talk, that takes them away from that closeness to that line, then everything we're doing here is making such a massive difference to the people that come on.
And do you feel like because you weren't technically, on paper, a threat to your life, it was kind of brushed off?
Oh, aye. It was, there's antidepressants away you go.
I think it's interesting to see what you're saying about, look, people have said to us before about some of the cynical people, maybe, and I know you're not being cynical in the question you're asking, it's genuine. The short answer is no. Of course there's not enough provision for help in the town. There absolutely is not. And you can see the campaigns of, different centres and whatever else. But people will say to us about stuff that we do in terms of all our charity stuff, and they'll say, well, do you not think that, whoever, council, government, whoever should be, local government, even whatever, should be more involved? Of course they should. But there are gaps, and I do think as well that, controversially possibly, I think that it's up to everybody to try and, if they can make a difference, to make a difference. So instead of just waiting for someone to do something, and I mean, in terms of the GP surgeries you're talking about, for instance, there was provision there was a bit of money made available, but it was it was a very finite amount of money, and it was only going to last ever for 8 or 12 weeks, and it's long gone. I would, as I said, the Kevin, who's ours or my contact at the time, he sat outside and he was saying, I wish there was more money, and we had this kind of joke. I think you were there as well, Thomas, and I says, Kevin, I'll be honest with you, see, from a business perspective, I would have done this for free. I says, whatever you're offering at the time, I says, whilst my accountant would be probably glad to see that we're taking something, I would have done it for nothing. And that's been evidenced by the fact that, and even people in Derry will sometimes come in and we can offer, some stuff for the guys for free, because somebody will come in and leave a donation or 20 or 50 quid, or will take something in the course that week. So again, and I credit Thomas as well, because people like to do the right thing, and they don't always know what they can do, but if they see something on social media, and I put out a post tonight and they say, actually, and I'll drop in 20 or 30 quid for that, then that has a big effect, because the guys will, it's just a token thing for the guys, but it means then somebody say, listen, that's all taken care of, and it's just nothing nicer sometimes, even no matter how much money you have, it's just nice to get something for free, and it might just be the difference between, it's like here, I've heard again as recently as tonight that this is one of the guys coming here, this is the salvation in his week, and he doesn't maybe keep well, or he doesn't, mobility maybe isn't great, but this is, if he can go, he will buy-ball everything else to be here, and so it could be that, or it could be just, like a friendly face or whatever it is, or a free cup of coffee. You don't know what's going to make a difference in somebody's day. It's probably the nicest thing somebody's done, possibly, more than likely, given the world we live in. And in terms of Stormont and all being back, sure, the entire thing is now, who's going to, there will be cuts, and there will be, for this kind of thing, I don't believe there'll be no more money made available than there ever has been, because they're under a massive deficit right now as it is.
And you would love to know what you were saying about the guy that his mobility is not great, and this is the highlight of his week, basically. You would love to know how many of the people that are struggling really need the likes of obviously the likes of post-traumatic stress and antidepressants and that kind of thing, but how many of them extremes can be someone just coming in, having a cup of coffee, having a chat, and going away feeling better about themselves and looking forward to it the week after? It could be something as simple as company, or a shoulder to cry on, or...
You're talking exactly. I have a couple of GP friends. I was talking to one recently in the gym I go to, and he, again, the amount of again, and I tip my hat every time I do this. I tip my hat to Thomas, even if he's not here or invisibly or whatever, because what he has succeeded in doing here is getting such an amount of people to talk about this. It's whatever we have done in the business 25 years, and the recurrent story. And we've done a lot of charity stuff in the past. And we still continue to do bits and pieces. But this is the one thing personally I enjoy most that has been sort of involved, or me being involved in it. And the guy that the GP I was talking in Jim was also talking about it. But like a gazillion and other people have been over the course of the 6 or 8 months, whatever we've been doing it. Maybe 8 or 9 months now, I don't know what it is. But he said the same thing. He said, look, see the social prescribing element of things now, the way things are. So, like Thomas has just said there, forget about your antidepressants, forget about whatever it is. These people fully are, involved in the fact that they need something. But if this isn't in place, then their hands are tied to what you can actually do. So, and I would suggest 100% that, and which I never would have done before, in this social prescribing, because it's different than just coming to a cafe now. So Thomas will talk to somebody today. They'll be out fishing next Thursday. They'll be going such and such and whatever else. It only takes that wee thing, right? There's several different things, and I've seen people talk about the worst things in life in here. And leaving, and I've never not one time I've been here as somebody, like I said, who sort of observes more than sort of is involved 100% in it, and I've never left here not better off for the time I spent in that couple of hours. And so if I'm saying that, it's very clear to me that what Thomas has started here, and the idea for that, and like I said, backed up by, we were laughing one day because we were saying about sort of our paths and academics and whatever else, and and Thomas saying, look, whatever his story is, which is a valuable story. You didn't think he'd be standing at lecturing at university or or talking to GPs or involved in where your life is taking you, and it's crazy to see that journey. It's just amazing to watch and to hear that, and to hear it rippling out to other things. I think that's an awful great legacy to have, that if it never happens again, if boys are out cycling on the basis that what Thomas has started to do here, and if other people are doing it in this town or different towns, we've done stuff in Charlotte before, and it's been people have come here to avail of it, and then have messaged me out of blue saying, oh, by the way, we now have one of these things going in Oma, and that to me is just nothing, like you just said before, nothing will compare to that. And forget about your listeners and your podcast or whatever. If somebody messages and say, great show, or to Thomas he'll say, I've done, or whatever it is, it's not about, for me it's not financial, it's not whatever, it's all pro bono, it's all this kind of stuff. And the reason certainly I'm involved in this tonight is just to make, if there's any more awareness we can get out there, for like you were saying, and like what Thomas was saying before, about making people aware that how easy and how very easy going it is in here. If anybody is listening and would be struggling in any way, it's such a friendly place to be.
Just as Declan said there, talking about from where I was to where I am now. You go back to this time 4 years ago, I was homeless. I had never in my wildest dreams thought I would be running cafes for men, these drop-on centres. I've started a fishing group for men for addiction and mental health. We're working on getting that socially prescribed. Have a new family, have a new baby. Life has completely turned around, and the majority of that has come from speaking out of how I've been feeling. Keeping them feelings to myself was never helping, and as soon as I started sharing them, the world seemed to open up. And it's been crazy whenever you put it under that kind of context. I work on orphans now as well, and that's something I share with them quite a lot, is don't be afraid to speak of how you feel. As soon as you let that out, you're opening up such a bigger world, and as soon as you keep it confined, you're confining the world that you're living in. And I have found that 10 times over now, from just being open and honest of how bad things are going, or on the other side of how good things are going. Don't be scared to share it.
And you say that you find it really helpful, and you said about the guy before that looks forward to it every week. Have you got really good feedback from everyone else? Have you seen people that come and they come regularly? Have you seen people that come and maybe get it off their chest and leave? What kind of
mixed bag, Thomas, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Like, there's a WhatsApp group, so the men requested there be a WhatsApp group set up, but reluctant to start with. They have a WhatsApp group going. But it is a general, let's meet up, I'm out about the town today, anybody about, let's meet up. And that's what the group is. Like, they've had a couple of nights out in one of the guys' houses where one of the guys cooked up 7 different types of curries, and they all went out to his house and they all had a curry night. No, so things like that. But it has just really been sort of a very good group of men. But that's the steady group that come every so often, the welcoming group. But we have seen ones that come in, and they do come in, share quite a bit. Might not see them for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they'll come back in and they'll share quite a bit, and then they'll leave again.
It's great because I like that element of it because it's like an old friend, like literally coming back in again. Do you know, before you think to yourself, it's like you belong to some team or whatever else, and you think, if I don't weigh in for 2 or 3 weeks, oh man, I've let everybody down, and whatever. It's not at all like that. It's just like, oh man, I haven't seen you for ages, and you sit in there and you think, and probably they leave again, and maybe life or other work or whatever dictates that they can't get here because it's just, it's not convenient for everyone at that particular time. It's convenient for most people that we have, but it's mad to see how that interaction happens. And so
you normally get a cheer.
I know, right? And so but it's a proper laugh, you know what I mean? And it's just like, it's nothing to, you would think there's nothing serious about it, right? But clearly, as I was saying before, there's a massive undercurrent of how important it is, that more than serious. But we've seen people together that you might not see for several weeks, and whatever works for them, because if that's what they need is a sort of to touch base every whatever it is, grand. But I would say that there is now, I couldn't believe in summertime, and the sun was splitting the rocks outside, and there was 15 or 20 people there, and I says, geez, well, if that's what it's going to be like at this time of the year, and you're always expecting a dip and a drop and whatever else. Now we are, and hence doing this and talking to yourself. We're always looking to put it out there to see, and if anybody's wavering or on the fence, they think, would be a bit shy or whatever else. The group has come and gone on numbers. They sort of have a core, and then you have another 20 people who dip in and out and whatever else. So there's always a band of people here, and the more that come, it's like business. The less reliant you are on that 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever people to be sort of to have any kind of numbers, because there's nothing worse. If I was being honest, I would say one of my fears at the start was having 2 people here and sitting like a sort of a tumbleweed type of scenario. You didn't really want that, but it has just not been like that. So to put that out across as well, that it's just it's a no necessity to be here every week. Come in, talk about whatever you want, or don't talk about what you want. Have a coffee, stay for 10 minutes, stay for 2 hours, whatever suits. It's so flexible and informal that it's just, like I said, it just seems to work.
And how has the likes of your social media followers and your customers and the members of the public, how have they reacted to it?
Well, from my score, I don't know now in Thomas, but we would do it from our Claude's Cafe Facebook page. Honestly, and I haven't told Thomas this, we probably put a few pound on our own takings over the course of the year, because in terms of people coming in, people want to support the right people, and I feel that people will come in and maybe have coffee here and then leave like a couple of quid occasionally or whatever else. There's like, I could tell you many stories which are, again, you don't get too much of this, and it's so humbling. I have an old friend, and his thing is sort of, the mantra is the giver is the receiver. So in terms of, I've seen people coming in here and us closing at 5 o'clock, some whatever it might be, Fridays or Saturdays, and there's a woman comes in every so often and leaves a couple of quid, and it's heartwarming and also heartbreaking, because that couple of quid is like me and you maybe having 100 quid or whatever else. I'm sure the girl, like a lot of other people, doesn't have an infinite amount of cash, but she has even heard about this through different social medias and whatever else, and will come in and sort of say, listen, I want to make sure somebody gets a cup of coffee or whatever else, like a pay it forward scenario. So you see a lot. I personally get the gratification of seeing a lot of that. I'm not sure, do you see much of it?
I do see quite a bit. It's funny that I see a bit of a different side of it. I see where the people reaching out to me going, how do we start a men's cafe? From different areas. Like we've had Strabane, I've had ones up in Omagh, reaching out to me going, well, would you come up and help us set up a men's cafe? Go and tell us what you've done. And I was like, it's funny for me because we just sort of automatically gelled and everything just felt perfectly into piss. Yeah. There wasn't really any kind of mad planning or anything like that behind it. It was, here's the idea. Declan was like, I'm on board. And let's start it, and it was sort of just like that. But no, I do get quite a lot of people reaching out, and it's funny whenever you see people asking for help. No, 9 times out of 10 you'll see a post with 20 comments on them. 10 of them's Claude's Cafe, Thursday nights, 46.
Aye.
And you're like, it blows my mind sometimes of how many people know about it and share about it, whenever I think it was just a crazy wee idea that sort of came together. Like,
it's the most, honestly, it's for me personally, and I'm not saying because we're all here, but it's if you ask any of my family and my wife, they'll say the same thing, and they were quite amazed because like we did a big project on Christmas Day, for instance, and it's been going for 20 something years. This knocks, if in terms of whatever it is about it, there's such a need. There's a need for everything in different respects, but this for me is it's probably the most affectionate comments I've heard, and we get some really nice stuff said. It's what I would run back to. I would, like I said before, if I'm out somewhere and I've actually seen myself like at Campsie Roundabout thinking, oh Jesus, 10-4, and like sprinting up the road coming here, like covered in sweat, and the boys all saying, oh, where were you out cycling? And I'm going like, and in my head I'm thinking, I busted my chops to get back here to, not that I'm working, just to be around, to get some of that sort of feeling. So I totally get what people are saying. I understand. I'm just amazed that they buy into it so well. But it's probably, if not, it's definitely in the last 8 months or whatever it's been, by far and away the biggest thing that people would talk to me about. If I'm meeting them face to face, people will say a lot of stuff online. If you do Christmas, it'll last for a week and they see it and it's all great and dandy and whatever else. But this one here is the gift that keeps on giving, because, and I have to be not egotistical, which is difficult for me sometimes. I got to keep bringing Thomas's name and putting Thomas' name in first. I put a post out tonight and I'm raging because I used to try and get his name in every time to try and not hog or take any massive credit, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there's a fantastic guy with a fantastic story who had the actual idea. All we are is just a button that opens up.
Just as he says that, though, I would get some people who come up to me and go, do you hear the Men's Cafe and Claude's on first, right? And I'd be like, I know about it. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. And I'd be like, it was my idea. Or you get the shock face then that, well, it was your idea, you come up with that. So it's kind of funny at times, like, but it's good. It's sort of humbling as well that so many people be talking about it. Like.
And you said before about when you're in here you hear some awful stories. Not to throw anyone under the spotlight, but if there's anyone that's thinking of coming, doesn't really know what's acceptable, what's not, what has been talked about that would...
Well, like, we have had stories of if they didn't come here they were going to the bridge. From that level of suicide down to the basics of, hey, I've had a crap day today. I've had an argument in the house with a wife. Could be anything. If a man come on not knowing how to go about getting help for addiction, because there has been a few that's here, and myself included, that have been through that, you'll be able to help and give the guidance of where to go to get the help. But we're having the contacts with the GP services now that have been able to gather up if somebody does come on with the suicide thing, that side of things, that I'm very quick to be able to point them in the right direction. 9 times out of 10 I have a bag and a car full of leaflets that I can hand out to show them where to go to get the help they need. So there's no sort of range. It's from the very small things to the biggest things in life that have been talked about here.
I think that's right. I think, people say like the worst thing can happen in terms of death. What is the worst thing that can happen? And again, we wouldn't be sort of betraying any confidences at all, but if you can imagine the worst thing possibly that you could actually think about, that's been discussed as part of, I have discussed that with a guy here, but he's within a group. So my first thinking there is maybe going a different way of thinking. If it was me that was sharing this story, I'd think, well, what are they all going to think about me if I've caused this? Why would anybody think that I deserve anything, right? And that was when I left away that night, because it's not that nobody cared, because certainly nobody said it, but as Thomas said, 2 very important words: safe space. So nobody has ever had to say, not once have I had to say anything to anybody, and people, this guy would tell you himself, and then it's up to you to make your mind up. So he'll say, this is what happened, and you'll say, wow, that's really bad, in terms of, he's not trying to hide, he's not trying to say it wasn't, anything to do with me. But what I'm saying is that, so it goes from A through to Z, and there's I can't think of anything that anybody out there would have that might give this a run for its money. So that's your question.
Through the 8 months, I don't think there's anything that sort of could be talked about that hasn't been talked about on here.
I certainly don't think it's nothing that is going to cause anybody to sort of that should put them off coming here. I think that they're like that. I think, and again, that has been a very good question, and it's nothing that, because it's something that you would sort of think about afterwards and think, well, it could be withholding a lot of people. And if anybody was to hear that, I would say that not in the slightest have I heard anybody even making any judgment about something like that. And again, it's not something that we've tried to organise or to try to tell people not to say it. It's just the vibe in the place. It's just, like I said, I think that's the magic of it.
And I think it's the men know that when they're on here talking, they know what's talked about here. It's left here. There's no carrying of stories. There's no going out going, what do you hear he was on there the night, and what do you hear what they were saying? There's none of that. No, the men know that whatever's talked about at them tables, it's left at that table and it's not taken anywhere else. And I think that's it really builds the confidence between the men, and when they start to open up. And then, you see it, one man will open up, and the next time it just goes round in a circle. And the stories get really deep of how bad they were feeling, and of where the dark places that they've been in. And then it sort of comes around in circles of how they come out of that, and they give the help and the guidance, and the person that was originally brought it up, that was looking for the help. So it's been really good. I say, there isn't anything that we would find that has been not talked about. So
no judgment at all?
Nah.
Really good.
No judgment.
I suppose if someone is listening to this, they might think, I don't want to talk about this, they'll say this, and it is nice for them to know that there is somewhere they can go with it.
I think that's where it sort of started as well, when the first couple of guys started coming in and not knowing where to take the conversation. I told my story of where I was, what I went through, and where I come out of and where I am now, and I think that sort of eased the tensions of what the first few weeks, of how to break it down a bit, and from that it's just really flown in. Of they carried it on, and they continue to carry it on, as you see when new ones starting to come in. They start to. It's not even they ask them what are you here for. They automatically start telling their story to make them feel comfortable, and turn then the person that's originally come on or just come on, they start to open up and tell their story. So there doesn't really anything that's you expected. You're not expected to come on and just start telling your story. Maybe do you get a couple of people share theirs to start with.
The guy says one time that sometimes you think you have the worst problems in the world, and then when you get to somewhere like here, and like Thomas, someone might say, God, that's an awful journey that I don't think I could have went on, in terms of Thomas's story, or anybody else's for that matter. And they often leave thinking to themselves, actually, mine isn't as bad as I thought. In terms of, and Thomas might think that about somebody else, I might think it about you, might think it, and so again, if it might even be a case of thinking, actually, things are not that actual bad, because this is the worst story. Like I said, I've heard everything from A to Z, and somewhere in between that, most likely you are, or people are, and so they will clearly see somebody or several people way worse off, and they'll maybe see somebody who's been in a similar position, and as Thomas says, they can maybe use that to their advantage in order to see a sort of to steer and navigate a path out.
And it's not just that too. It's without bringing yourself in, Thomas. It's you can see that you were going through such an awful time, and you've come out the other side. So if you can do it, and maybe mine isn't half as bad as yours was, what's to say I can't do it as well?
Well, that's one thing that I would never ever say to anybody, if I can do it, you can do it. So that's never the case. It's all we can do is help and guide them and give them the tools to guide them through their own path. But I would never ever say to somebody, if I can do it, you can do it, because it's never the case. Everybody's story is different, everybody's journey is different, but it's getting somebody to help and guide you through your own journey. Your own journey is what's going to get you through the other side. I tell my story, and I don't think it's that bad, because I loved it. But from somebody that hasn't never lived through something like that, they go, wow, that's mental. How are you still here? How are you still alive from the stuff that you've been through? And I think, it wasn't that bad, because I've heard worse stories, so I don't think mine is that bad. So that's the way I see it. But it all depends on where you are and where you're coming from. to how you look at somebody else's story.
I kind of meant like internally think.
All right.
It's not that bad, because you were saying, oh, it's not that bad. Some people think, he's saying about this and it's so horrible. Who am I to complain about this? But then internally, could be thinking if they can get through that.
Absolutely, yeah. And people would think that and whatever. Like I said, it's just you couldn't. The beauty of this, as Thomas said, is I'd love to maybe take some more credit and said, listen, you know what, it was all really planned and it's worked a treat and whatever else. But everything.
Maybe we should start saying.
We go back to stop now and say, actually, we had a really good idea, right? We edited it here. The really good idea we both had, executed to a T. But no, do you know what? It's all the above. I think it's kind of like a work in progress. It's when people come to us and ask for, in terms of what we do for different stuff, they'll say it's whatever many 20 years or 30 years experience of doing this. And so for this year, it's quite difficult. You need the right sort of things in place, and maybe even the right people and initial sort of things to sort of to gravitate towards that. And I think between being fortunate and Thomas' cases, but certainly more than mine, smart in terms of how this would actually come about, But I think, like, honestly, there's no plan to change it. There's been great things of it. I wished, if nothing else, that if it was any way of promoting it more within a city, as you just said earlier, that is clearly lacking in investment, even in signposting, because there are people, I'm sure there's people out there with and that's why I keep plugging this on social media and whatever else, and like I said, any of these opportunities we will take, absolutely, because if you're getting another person that's going to somehow hear this or whatever, it has to be worth doing.
I would love to be able to duplicate. I don't think we could duplicate what was created here. I mean, I've taken this to MLAs. I've asked them to take it to council. I've asked them to expand on it and help develop it and make it grow. All love the idea. They've heard about the idea. They've loved to see how it goes. But as soon as I walk out that door, there is nothing done about it. And that's what gets me, is why is council, why is MLAs, why is the many political parties not getting involved? Why are they not promoting this? They know how bad mental health is within this town. Why are they not jumping on the back on it? And that's what sort of gets me, is that it should be up there with one of the number one priorities, is to help men with their mental health. And this proves that it works, so why not get the backing on it? Why are we not having this run 7 days a week through 7 different cafes throughout the whole time? There's a lot more that can be done with such a simple idea, but it's not been taken advantage of.
Yeah, and I totally agree, Thomas. And if there was any way, that would be the one thing that I would see, the link that's needing to be fastened up, is this is such a very cheap fix. I mean, without going through specifics, but I mean, somebody asked me now, what, even to make this free, if you were to throw 100 quid between staff in it, and if I said I'm going to knock out teas and coffees free all night, if I had to put a figure, and it doesn't matter really and truly how many people, if they say 20 or 30 or 40 or 10 or whatever, it's probably going to cost in around about 100 quid. If you consider, as Thomas said, 7 cafes or 7 places offering this facility, and even council or somebody was willing to sponsor half of it or whatever, or say, look, if you do this and you do it for a period of time, we'll do it for a period of time, or whatever it might be. Given that, I think that would be a magic thing. I think that in terms of bang for buck, there, like I said, when GPs are physically telling me that by far and away what you guys are doing is way better, clearly, and way more cost effective than clogging up a surgery, and taking appointments from people who, like, I'm not saying that these people are not sick, but he says it's not what they need. They are coming because they have nowhere else to go, and they're taking appointments for people then to talk about sort of waiting lists and this and that, and has a knock-on effect, or going out of hours because then GPs can't take them. And all of this is such a very, very easy sort of fix when you look at, even in monetary terms, it's easy. And all it needs is, as you just said, is I think we need you in council, Thomas. Would that stand? Or like an independent?
No.
For the mayor?
It's funny, that's not the first time we've been asked.
Do you know, but I think that, in terms of money spent, right, I do think that
Well,
you talk about thousands of pounds.
If you say if you say £100 and through 7 cafes, you're looking at 35 grand for a year. And that's a cafe every night in different areas throughout the whole city.
Imagine. Derry City and Strabane District Council area would be leading the way in that for like literally a drop in the ocean. This is, we're talking about somebody's expenses for coffee as an MLA and wherever in Stormont for the year possibly. This is nothing. This is really nothing. And in an area in the northwest, which is, and if you could leave a legacy like that, this is fantastic what we're doing here. But do you see if like literally you could do something like that? And I think that's how it needs to be put. People need to be literally led by the nose and said, this is how much it costs. And even if I would be happy to speak to other people in business and see would they make their place available, and even if they would take a punt on it. So even the 35 grand, I think if people like me were offered, to cover the cost, it was 50 quid and for a night, to cover the cost even of the wages if they couldn't do it themselves, of putting a person or 2 people in for a couple of hours, I think they would still have a bash at it.
It's funny how you brought up the coffee wage, because I was just thinking when you were saying that, and maybe I worked in retail, maybe it's the marketing side of me, but you could say something like, you can insure this TV for the price of a coffee a month.
Yeah.
You can, even if the tea and coffee wasn't free, you could come in, spend I don't know how much coffee is. I told you I don't drink it. £2 for a price of coffee a week to come in, rather than having to go private and spend £100 for an hour a couple of times a month on a therapist, when it maybe isn't something that you actually need. And that's obviously taken away from, actually, if you can't afford that, the weeks and months that you're on a list to actually see a free one with the NHS, which is costing the NHS how much.
I've said to my friends, like I said, we knock about, and fortunately, look, this doesn't miss anybody. See the help and whatever this, it doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter what job you do, doesn't matter whatever. If you're feeling a certain way or doing whatever, and if it is a mental health issue or whatever, like I said before, I make zero bones about it, which is even a big stride for me, because somebody who is kind of robust and saying, I have never, there's clearly a reason why I love coming here, because I've now staffed it and I still be around, and like the girls are saying to me, why are you here? And I'm saying, well, I just need to be doing stuff here, you know what I mean? And because it's just a nice place to be. It's a good place to be. It's a safe place to be. And I invariably swap stories with whoever. And I mean, if it could be, it's amazing. You're right. There's a guy here who's just left last night. You might have heard him just before we started. And we got a pile of tickets from Derry City. I know some of the PRO in Derry City. And so I said, any chance of a couple of FOC tickets to the Derry match, which was well sold out. I think it was playing Shamrock Rovers, one of the most sought out. Of course, with the match I would want to ask tickets for. So the guy says, absolutely, many needed on. We had whatever many people. And so, there's always opportunities, and I find that's what's important, is when you don't know when you're talking to somebody, it could be, like Thomas is saying, it could be an opportunity to go for a coffee or a dinner, or more than, or get involved in a WhatsApp group. So it's not just about 46 on a Thursday night anymore. It's about, by the way, you've come here, and a couple of guys are going to a match next week, and we've got a couple of tickets. I was talking to Kevin Deary, the institute manager, and he was saying about coming to the Brandywell when they watch Shipquay. And again, I said tonight, I said, actually, they're in a cup tie with Linfield, and I thought, I like a bit of Irish League soccer too. So I was going to message him and say, any chance of a couple of freebie tickets for me and a couple of the boys Thursday night? And this guy here, way out, and he was saying, absolutely, I'll go to the Institute Match, no trouble with. And that's a conversation from nothing. It's just that speculative time here on 46. It is, as they say, it's greater than the sum of its parts.
Good. So Thursday night, Claude's 4 to 6.
Yep.
If anyone is interested, we end the podcast every week asking each guest, Claude's Cafe aside, if Claude's Cafe wasn't here, what do you do if you're having a bad day to make yourself feel better?
For me, I just go out on my bike.
I think we can nearly answer that for each other.
Aye. Exactly.
We're minus fishing. A couple of hours fishing.
We should have done that, damn it.
Just clear the head.
So exercise and a
Yes.
hobby.
Yeah.
I can't think of fishing. I'll be stuck in my own head too long. I think that'll be worse.
That's funny. It's
I
because
said that too.
people think that, but the whole time that you're fishing, your concentration is on the top of the rod and waiting for that bite and waiting for the pull through your line. So your head is actually more clear than you doing anything else.
And concentration.
I have a couple of friends, head chef friends and guys that own restaurants and whatever, and they go fishing and they're proper good fishermen like Thomas. And I've asked, this is why I'm cautioning now and caveating this before Thomas has a fishing trip coming up, I'm asking to take a veil of what I'm saying here. They says absolutely no chance, not in God's earth you come and fishing with us, Declan, not a mission, because you'll sit there after 2 minutes fidgeting high and saying I want to go for a run, I want to go cycling, can I jump in the water and go for a swim? So he says absolutely not. The last time I went, I had a bird's nest is what your man affectionately called it, where I had just tangled all the rod and line up to whatever. He says gee. So they vowed never to ever, and they go like on a couple of day fishing trips to like wherever down in sort of beside Kong and Ashford Castle and down around that neck of the woods, and they hire like a boat and a place, and I would just love to go for a few drinks and whatever else. Cordially not invited. So you need to be calm.
You wave at them from the.
Exactly. From I dry shore. Absolutely.
Right, boys. Thank you very much for coming on and speaking to me, and thanks for your hospitality tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone negatively affected by this week's episode, there are a number of links in the bio to help. That's all from me. I will see you next week on That's Mental Mate.